And hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. So I got a request to do a video on how to encrypt and decrypt text in Delphi. So let's get started. Now there's not too much to do. We only need to add a button because that's all we're going to do. You can add more later on if that's how you want to. But at this moment I only feel like adding a button because a button is not a lot of effort. I'm not even going to name the button, or maybe I should name the button. Let's just quick edit it. No, I'm not going to name the button. So I'm not even going to name the button. I'm just going to start. I'm not just going to go instantly. Now what you want to do first is you want to save everything. You want to make sure there's a folder. So here, there's my folder. Inside my folder, here's the project. Now let's run it just so it can build everything we need. Alright, now that we have built it, we can just close out of this, open up this, go into the Win32 folder, into the debug folder, and then once we're in here, we can just create a new file, create a new document, and you can call this whatever you want. I'm just going to call it crypt, but not in capital K. Letters, please, no. Crypt, because then it just looks sketchy. Now our encrypted text, our encrypted data will go into this file. If you don't want to use a file, you don't need to create this file. I just think it's nice to put it in there. Now if you want an idea of how it will look, I will show you right here. Let's just open another window. Alright, so this is how it will look. If you click on this crypto text, the one that has already been done, it would look something like this. Now, of course, you can add more things in here. You can add more strings, you can add more numbers. But this is how the encrypted text will look. And unless the people know how to actually decrypt this, decrypt it, they wouldn't know what this says. So yeah, let's continue. Now also, you can have two buttons, the encrypt and the decrypt button, but I'm going to do both in one button. You don't need to, I just want to because I feel it's easier for me. So then first thing you want to do is you want to create either public or private, doesn't really matter in this case. You want to create two functions that return of type string, one encrypt and one decrypt function. Okay, once you have created those, we can actually start with everything we should. So here we want to add a few variables because we're going to work with getting input, getting the decrypted value, as well as getting the text file, as well as getting the text file. So we can go variable t file, which will be a text file, is input for the input, is decrypt for decryption, and is line, which will all be of type string. Okay, then first thing we want to do is we want to go is input, and that becomes input box. Now whatever they put in here will be decrypted. If you don't want to use an input box, you can actually use an edit, and people can just put things into this edit and you can do the same thing. So yeah. Okay, so once you've gotten the input, you want to assign the file to the text file. So we can just go assign t file, and then the file we chose was script.txt. And then we have to try and rewrite the file. So if the file exists, this won't give an error, so we can just go rewrite and then t file. Now rewrite is going to basically rewrite the entire file, so it's going to remove everything from the file. So if you do not want, let's do that and sit there. So if you don't want to rewrite the entire file, you want to keep adding to it, you should not use rewrite. You should use something else which does not rewrite the entire file. We can just go show message. If this fails, show message, just say we couldn't load the file. And then we don't want to continue with anything, so we just have to go exit. Then once we've exited, we can just skip everything from here. So we can just say close file and then T file. Or you know what, let's actually add everything so we can see what happens, and it will do the encryption afterwards and decryption. So what we want to do is we want to go right line, and then we want to go T file and then encrypt. So encrypt is input, and basically this will just encrypt the message and write it to the file. That's basically what we saw last time, so we basically did that right now, but it doesn't actually encrypt it yet, so don't try it. Okay, and then after we've done that, we will want to now read from the file. We want to get the message from it. This is why I said you can split it into two buttons. So if you want to split it into two buttons, this is where you'd split it. So you can go try and then reset T file. It will just put the cursor back to the top of the file. Then accept, and we can just copy this. So it's not necessary to do this while loop, but I think if you're going to in the future add more and more and more and more, so you can read more from the text file and not just one line, this while loop would come in handy. So I'm going to add the while loop now. So while not end of file and then T file do begin, and then we want to say read line T file S line. So that's just going to read the line and put it into S line. So if you have more than one line, this will be very useful. If you only have one line, it's just going to read that one line. As simple as that. And now here at the top, because that's gone, we can go sdic, and that becomes empty string. Because now we're going to go sdic becomes, and then sdic, so it's going to add all of the decrypted text to one. If you just have one line, this isn't actually necessary. But in the future, if you have more than one line, then this will become a little bit necessary. Then you can just go decrypt and then put in your message right there, S line. So yeah, remember S line is encrypted because it's being read from the file that keeps the encrypted text. So then we can go show message, and we can show the decrypted message. And once we've shown the decrypted message, we can just go and end it off. So we can just say close file T file, and that will just close everything off again. As easy as that. Now we can get to encrypting and decrypting the text. So Control-Shift-C once you hear the functions. And then first we can go to encrypting the text, because we need to encrypt it before we can decrypt it. So let's first do that. So then we can just add a few variables. We can add a variable I for integer, because we're going to use a for loop, sout or soutput, however you'd like to do it. I like to do sout. And then we have to go our code. Now soutput has to be set to absolutely nothing, otherwise we might get errors. Then we have to create a for loop. So for I becomes 1 to the length of the inserted message, length of the message that has been inserted. And we can just go begin and end, Control D, Control S, space, space. Then first thing we have to do is we have to set our code equal to the power. Oh wait, before we do that, we cannot just add power. We actually have to go up here first, and we have to include the math class. That will allow us to use math operations such as square root and power and all of that. So we can go power. This will basically just put it to the power of something. And then ORD. Now what will ORD do? ORD is basically an ordinal type. let's say we put A inside of ORD, then it's going to return 97. Because if you have seen any of my previous videos, I've talked a lot about this. But there's something called ASCII values. A's ASCII value would be something like 97. And B's ASCII value would be something like 98 then. And something like capital letter A would be something like, let's say, 67 maybe. And a space would be something such as, I think, 32. I'm not sure. But all of them have a specific value. You don't need to know the specific value, but Delphi will get that value for you. So we're going to take the value of S message at index I, and we're going to create an ordinal value from it. And then we're going to create the power of 2. So basically, if, let's say the value is 97, let's say their name is Adam, they spell it with a small letter A, and the first letter is then A. Then it will turn into a 97 to the power of 2. I have no idea how big that is. Calc. So 97 times 2. What? I'm not a noob. Let's go 97 because that's basically what it is. You'll get 8,924. That's a big number, right? So yeah, that's basically what it's going to do. That's how it's going to encrypt it. You don't need to do the power. I just felt the power makes it more difficult to understand if someone tries to read it. And of course, the more difficult you make this, the more difficult it will be to read. You can add your own strings, you can add your own numbers and stuff like that. Just make sure you understand what's going on there, because you don't want to get confused, especially when it gets to decrypting the message, which we'll get to soon. So then we can go S output, and S output becomes S output plus, and then float to string, and we want to say our code, and then plus just add a space there. That's going to be our delimiter. You don't need to use a space as your delimiter, but I want to because I find it to be easy and more confusing for the user. For the guy trying to read it, I mean. Whew. Okay, and then we can just go result becomes S output, and now we have successfully encrypted the file. Let's actually see how that looks. Let's remove all the decrypting stuff because we don't need that right now. We want to see how it looks if it's encrypted. So we can go Control D and Control S. We can run this. We can open our file manager. We can look at crypto.txt. Nothing's in here. Good. So since it's an empty file, okay. So now if we're going to press the button, click, and let's say my name, Steven. We say okay. Now if we go back to our crypt.txt file, as you can see, that is very difficult to understand. But as you can see, here's the E and here's the E again. They're the same number. Now let's, just for interest sake, just to show you what ASCII values look like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to remove the power, and just to show you how it will look if you remove the power from it. And then if we run this and we click the button and we say Steven, and we say OK. If we go here and we go to crypt.txt, this is how ASCII values look like. So yeah, as you can see, E is 101. Anyways, so now you might be asking, but why are we using our code for something like this? Well, it's because power, the power function in Delphi, if I'm correct, it's the power one, not the OR, but the power function, for some reason it returns a double or a real, or actually just an extended. It doesn't really return an integer. So there's a little problem with that. I don't understand why it does that, but then you just have to use our code instead of I code. But yeah, so that is basically how the encryption will work. It's just going to encrypt all of that for us. So now we can just go here to decrypt and start decrypting the message. So we're just going to, as soon as they click encrypt, it's going to decrypt it as well. You don't have to do that. As I said, you can split it into buttons and stuff like that. So yeah, first thing we'll need if we're going to decrypt is we're going to have to create variables. And we need an I for integer, because we're going to use another for loop, is output, and then is dec for decryption, and then we can go string, and then we also need one more. I don't really know what to call this one, so I can just go as temp. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to use it as temp because it's basically a temporary variable. Yeah, I'm just making those hand signs with my fingers so you know that it's temporary. Not that you can see my fingers, but I said I did it, so you know. And then our code, which is a real, because we're going to need to get the code and stuff like that. So the message that will be entered in here is basically going to be the encrypted message, and we are going to have to try and decrypt that. So is output becomes nothing, and then is dec, that becomes nothing as well, and then for I becomes 1 to the length of is message do begin. Also, you can use a while loop here, but I found using a for loop, for me at least, to be easier, or that it is easier. Anyways, then if is message at index I is not a space. So basically, we used a space as our delimiter. So we're going to try and get a letter, because if we go here back to the encrypt.txt file, there's spaces between everything. So it's going to read this, and then once it finds a space, it's going to say, okay, this was a letter, and then it's going to say this is the new letter. So that's why we need a delimiter, and in this case it's a space. You can use whatever you want, hashtag, a comma, a tilde, whatever you feel will make it best for you. So then we can go is dec, and then becomes is dec, not b plus, becomes is dec, and then plus is message at index I. So this will just basically build up whatever number we have. So it's going to be 1, 6, 7, and then space. So then it's going to know it has to end, and then there's going to be an else, and this is where the else comes in. So only if it has a space, only if it's not a space, it will do this. Once it finds a space, it's going to actually try and decode that. So then we can go our code, and that becomes, now if you know your basic math rules, which I don't, but if you do, you'd know that to get, let's put it like this, let's get a calculator here. So if we go 5 times 5, which is 5 to the power of 2, 5 times 5, that's 25, right? Now we can use this square root of 25, that's 5. So yeah, that's how you do, that's why I chose such an easy encryption method, because it's so much easier to figure out. So yeah, we can just use squirt, which basically means square root, and we can go string to int, because we need to convert this decoded text into an integer. We got a full 4-digit number. We have to decode that into an integer again, or not decode, we have to change it into an integer, convert, and then we have to use square root on that, and that will become our code. We use our code because square root does the same thing as power, if I'm correct, and it's annoying. So yeah, now this is not per se necessary, I just found this easier to read, but you can also then go use your isTemp, but you don't have to use this isTemp. You can use it in the next line completely without this isTemp. Then you can go float to string, and instead of this you put your isDict. So now you have your string again instead of a number, because we're going to use it as a number. because where this next thing comes in, it's going to become a little bit more difficult to understand. So then there's going to be S output, and this output is going to become S output plus, we don't need that, plus, and then char, CHR, and this takes in a byte. So then you go str to int, and you just put your S test in there, and there you have your byte test, temp I mean, not test. Okay. And then you want to make your SDEC, you want to empty that again, so nothing else is in there anymore. Good. And then you can put your result in here, so, or out here. Result becomes, and then S output. And then we can just close this because that's annoying. Okay. So now we can uncomment this again. So then, while not in the file, it's going to read the line. It's going to say decrypt this please, and then it's going to show what it decrypted. So it does read from the file, so it first encrypts it. So just to make sure you guys know that I'm not cheating you here, we have an error that's impossible. You know what? I accidentally did that. I should not have done that. It's our code, because you know we put this into our code, so our code should then go in here, because otherwise this would have just been a useless situation. Yeah, oopsie. Very, very big oopsie. Now let's try again. So let's open up this file, or not open up it yet. Let's first type in what we want. Hello. Hello. My name is Netsu. We have like a, we got like a bunch of weird thingies here just to make sure we can break it, and then like smiley face and tilde just to look a little bit cute. Say okay. So it encrypted it, put it in this file right here. It encrypted it, as you can see right here, all of those lines of numbers, and then once it encrypted it, it decrypted it at the same time. So then it said, hello, my name is Netsu. That's exactly what I put in there. So yeah, that is how you encrypt and decrypt it. Very basically, you guys could obviously make this more difficult. I just show you all the most basic version of just encrypting and decrypting. Nothing too special about it. But you can maybe go something like power to 10, like that will make it so much more difficult to understand. So yeah, that's how you encrypt and decrypt, and I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. See you all in the next video.